Hello again, many thanks for choosing us. This is your home of independent, fearless and credible journalism. Now, negotiations for increment in base pay for the 2023 working year has stalled as government failed to get a quorum to engage agitating labor unions. The unions initially asked government to increase their base pay by 65%. They have reached a compromise of 58%, but government says it can only afford to pay 18% more on their base pay. The latest meeting ended abruptly because some representatives of the side of government did not show up. Despite the setback, the unions say they are willing to give government some more time to prepare and come back to the negotiating table. Michael Ashale spoke to the Deputy General Secretary of the Trade Union Congress, Joshua Ansa.
Where are we now with the negotiations?
Oh, today the negotiations did not come on because we didn't form quorum. We weren't able to form quorum. Yes, so the decree had been postponed for another date.
But just to give us a sneak peek into what what your idea was going to be. The last time I heard it was 58%. You had come down from 65. I mean, what were you coming to the meeting with?
Oh, no, my brother. We are coming to the meeting to listen to what the government is prepared to offer us. Yes, that was our plan of this.
But the last time, they didn't give you any figure. So were you hoping that it would go up now?
That's our hope. But if they don't go up, we don't expect us also to do anything.
But many say you're holding government, you are holding a gun to their head. You have declared a strike on one side. You are refusing to allow your pensions to be part of the negotiations. So how do you expect us to get more money to pay you? You're asking for more, at least for now, 58% more.
58%, I think people do not understand why we're asking for the 60%, for which we are come to 58. It's a simple analogy. You see, the base pay by law should be higher than the minimum wage. As I speak to you, the base pay is far, far, far lower than the minimum wage. As I speak to you now, the base pay is 11 cedis, 33 pesos. The minimum wage is 14.88. In bridging the gap, we need about 31.33% to come at par with the base pay. That alone is 31%. So if you are negotiating at this time, there's no way that you accept anything less than 31% plus. Because that will bring you at par to the minimum wage. Then there should be 10% over and above the minimum wage. If you add 10% to that 30-something, it pushes you to 40 plus. And people think that we are just asking for percentage increase with no reason. There are bases for that. If government should even bring our minimum base pay at par with the minimum wage, it's already 31 plus percent. Plus the 10% is 40 plus. And you are already enjoying a COLA of 15%. You add it. There is a relativity of 1.7 that has not been applied for more than since the inception of this base pay. So these are some of the things you need to know before you talk about we are becoming insensitive and this and that and that. Nobody is holding a gun at the head of anybody. No way. We are only negotiating.
So in the last meeting, you also spoke about inflation. Yeah. But the inflation numbers that we have now, it seems that inflation is slowing down. Are you hoping to double down?
Are you sure that it's slowing down?
I mean, they are hoping that because the CD to dollar rate has decreased from November to now, in January.
Hope. No. Let us be factual. Are you talking about hope or facts? What is the inflation today? Inflation today is 50.4. Yeah, it's going up. So from 40-something, 50, and now it's 0.4. So it's going up. It's never coming down. Yeah. That is what you need to know.
Yeah. So you are not willing to come down any further from 58?
Oh, that one, when we get to the negotiating table, you'll negotiate.
So question is, how much of our pension funds will be affected in the debt exchange program, which is also a prerequisite for labor in all of this? Remember, the salaries are different, but also there's a debt exchange program, and labor is demanding that their pension funds be exempted. But government needs the space to be able to, cut that deal with the IMF. Kofi J is our in-house data analyst. He joins me in the studio. Kofi, you've been looking at the figures. How much really of the pension funds constitutes that, 55 billion that government wants to cut away so that we can have that space to restructure our debt?
Well, as for the space, we really need a space because if you look at the 2023 budget, we are looking at somewhere around 40 billion, more than 40 billion Ghana cedis as deficit.
Okay.
And this is because you have line items like payment of interest, and then also compensation of employees that even labor is asking for an increase in their base pay.
And it's interesting because as we speak, they've still not come to a conclusion on how much.
Because last year they went with 25%, government gave them 7%. That is why this year they've actually entrenched their position that they won the 58% because they feel what they got last year was very small. But if you look at the, the touch screen right now or the smart wall, you can actually see the amount actually invested by pension funds into government securities. So we are looking at the 2021 debt reports released by the Finance Ministry.
Right.
So if you look at pensions, including, SNIT, we are looking at somewhere around 2.32 billion Ghana cedis.
Right.
Now, this includes ESLA bonds and Dachi bonds. So we are looking at just two. This as of 2021. So we are anticipating that this figure will even be more than the 2.32 billion that we are seeing here.
Yes.
This is the money of pension, pension money actually invested in government securities called bonds, ESLA bonds, and Dachi bonds. And they will need this money to be paid back. And they wouldn't want this money to actually go through a restructuring. So if you look at the next slide, we're looking at, the ESLA bonds, for instance. Look at the domestic components, about 8.69 billion Ghana cedis.
Okay.
And pension funds is about 1.83 billion.
Okay.
And it says 21% of domestic holders of the ESLA bonds.
Right.
And so this money is so huge to the extent that if you compare it to the total domestic sector holding government securities, about 21%.
21%.
Now, if you look at the Dachi bonds, for example, it is 2.45 billion currently in terms of domestic sector holdings, and SNIT pensions pensions including SNIT is around 485.4 million Ghana cedis, and there's 19.8%. So if they look at all these monies and government wants to do a restructuring, they can actually see that they will lose greatly because the money is very significant. And so we've been tracking, talking about external debt restructuring, for instance. Okay. We've been tracking, Ghana's Eurobond, payment or maturities in the next 10 years. What does the picture look like for Ghana? Why do we need an external debt restructuring so bad? If you look at Eurobond, loans that we've taken in the next 10 years, although the outstanding Eurobond is about $13.3 billion, government is expected to pay close to $7.85 billion in the next 10 years. Right. Now, Ernest, in the next 10 years, of these 7.85 billion that we're talking about, about 43% of them is supposed to be paid in the next 5 years. Okay. So we're looking at, some $148.8 million in, 2023. Then we also have some $525 million in 2025. Then from 2026, you can see that we'll be paying so much. 1.25
in 2026, 1 billion in also 2026. 750 million.
2027.
Okay, another 1 billion and another 1 billion 900.
Absolutely. If you add all of this, about $7.85 billion. Now, you're looking for 3 billion from the IMF. Yeah. And you are going to pay 7.85 billion in the next 10 years. It means the amount you're looking for from the IMF is actually more than 2 times smaller than how much you're supposed to settle as your, And we pay close to $1.7 billion every year. If you look at from 2018 to 2020, how much we pay so far, we pay $1.7 billion every year on the average to settle interest payments alone. If you add principal, then we are hovering around 2.4 billion. So we need the space that you spoke about when we were actually about to start this conversation. We need this space.
So I guess the question with the pension funds is, can government really afford to exempt pension funds in this debt exchange program?
Well,
and what would that mean for the IMF?
Looking at the figures,
every city is important.
But every dollar is also important.
It's really a tough one for government.
Very tough.
But we have an external debt exchange program also underway. The investors have called for transparency and fairness in the process today. We saw the statement that was released. But how much are we looking to save as far as that program is also concerned?
Also, Ernest, if you look at the 2023 budget, we budgeted for close to 21 billion Ghana cedis. And if as you use today's rates, about $2.6 billion. That's interest payments alone on our external loans in 2023. 2.6 billion NS. It's more than 50% of the money we are looking from the IMF. 3 billion from the IMF and 21 billion Ghana cedis, about 2.6 billion, dollars right now. And that is, like about 80% of
huge.
How much you're looking for from the IMF. Right. So IMF wouldn't want to give you the money and expect that you use the money to pay, interest on your loans. They want to see the money being used for judicious use. So they wouldn't allow you to use that money.
Definitely, government would have to engage more, and we'll see how this pans out. Kofi, thank you very much, as always, for helping us understand the figures. And away from the debt exchange program, let's go to Parliament now. In any civilized democracy, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta will be gone months ago. Strong words from the NPP MP for Subin as he and his colleagues return to their resistance move to have the embattled minister removed from office. An enraged Eugene Boakye-Antwi told Joy News they will hold President Akufo-Addo to his promise to remove the minister after the budget and IMF talks. Tomorrow, the appropriation bill will be passed, and the NPP MP say the president must live to his part of the deal. Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Kweku Asante has more.
Leg of the NPP MP's deal with the president is to allow the minister see through the IMF talks. The MPs are now waiting for President Akufo-Addo to keep his part of the bargain.
The minister hand out that we have a finance minister who came to this house and met us the caucus and said, look, you know what? I won't do IMF. I will not do IMF. Well, I think it's very degrading for a country like ours. But I have two revenue streams. Help me make it a reality that will not make us go to IMF.
And you fought tooth and nail to give him that?
Yes, you were here. Look at how we fought for him to pass the e-levy. Bill is not an act. These are major policy failures that in any civilized democracy, Ken Ofori-Atta will not stand on his feet. Why are we entertaining such nonsense? Excuse my French. Why are we? What have we got against him as a person?
Since 80 of these NPP MPs took this unprecedented step, some of them have said their seats in Parliament have been threatened. Eugene Boakye-Antwi says they are not bothered by such threats. Tamale North MP Alassane Suhuyini says President Akufo-Addo will go after those MPs individually.
I believe that many of them will suffer the consequences, especially during their primaries. Because one, the President Akufo-Addo has shown since he became president, and even before that, when he was leader of the NPP, that he's an unforgiving person. And so you go against him and he fights you to the floor. And so they are going to contend with their, open aggression.
The Subin MP did not mince words. He and his colleagues are well aware of the threat, but are unfazed.
Nobody made me an MP. Akufo-Addo did not make me an MP. You understand? God made me an MP. I was elected as Akufo-Addo was elected. So nobody should dare threaten anybody. When you veer into that realm, you even muddy the waters the more. So they shouldn't bring these threats and what have you. If you want to come and sit me, come to Subin and sit me. Nobody made me an MPO. The good people of Subin made me an MP. I contested a primary like Akufo-Addo contested a primary to become president. The fact that you have taken this position doesn't mean that it's directly directed at President Akufo-Addo. No. We are talking about the supreme interest of the NPP. And no individual, quote me, is bigger than this party. Nobody. Including me, including Akufo-Addo, including all the MPs. We are serving the tradition, the MPP tradition. We don't have to agree all the time. Otherwise, we'll be seen as robots. There are certain times we will go our separate ways. The decision we have taken as MPs is to ensure that Akufo-Addo, who I have served loyally and faithfully.
What our sources within the NPP tell us is that what Eugene Boakye-Antwi has been telling us, represents the general feeling within the NPP majority caucus here in Parliament that was championed by the minority in Parliament. But politically, he is still being hounded by members of his own party who are after him to leave the finance ministry. It's up to the president and Parliament. Reporting for Joy News, Kweku Asante, Parliament House, Accra.
Let's go to Zoom now and speak to Dr. Kwame Asante, political scientist at the University of Ghana. Doc, thank you so much for joining us here on Joy News Prime. And so, first of all, many Ghanaians were not happy, expressed their disappointment with the MPs who eventually agreed with the president to hold on with their demand for the finance minister to be removed from office until the IMF deal is reached and the budget passed. In fact, many more were disappointed when they failed to join the minority in that censure motion. Here we are hearing today Eugene Boakye Antwi say they will be demanding that the president actually honors his part of the bargain. Is this an attempt to restore credibility, and should we trust them again?
Oh, my brother, I think I don't trust them one bit. Today, they have a different story to tell us. The next day, there's another story about the same issue. For me, it's nothing but indecision. There is a problem. I mean, indecision on their part. They don't know what to do. And for me, if you look at it critically, they are not even interested in removing anybody. It's just only to throw that into our eyes, and it's not true. Because why am I saying that? You threatened. You said you have spoken with the president. He should give you time. You are still within the time, and you are still, threatening the president and the leaders of the party that you will shuffle. I'm asking, where is their source of power to remove a minister themselves? Parliament couldn't even remove the minister. So what are they talking about? I am calling their bluff. They can't do anything. Nobody can threaten the president.
But to be fair, Doc, there was an agreement with the president that once we have passed the appropriation for 2023, and once we have a deal with the IMF, the president will then honor his part of the bargain to remove Ken Ofori-Atta. Tomorrow, appropriation will be passed. We have a staff level agreement with the IMF, even though we actually have not signed off the deal. Hearing them speak today should be a sign that indeed they are men of their words, and that we must give them some credit.
They are not. They are not. Because, look, you spoke with the president, and the president said, wait till everything is finished with the IMF and all that. Have we concluded that discussion? And now you are threatening the president. I don't think they can threaten the president. No. The president will decide to remove somebody or not, even though I know that there is a cost to that. If he doesn't do well, he's not going to get the ministers who will perform. Already the president has said that his ministers are performing very well. And if that, better performance is what we are seeing, let's wait, give ourselves time. The reality will dawn on us. But for the group, I don't trust them. I don't trust their word on this call. They are only throwing that into our eyes. They don't mean it. They can't remove anybody. Even if Parliament couldn't even remove the minister. So what are they talking about? Article 82.5 is waiting for them if they want to go on that route. When the NDC gave them an opportunity to join, why did they chicken out? Now that they want to tell us they are serious about it, and they should be made to know that they are suffering credibility problems. If they continue on this tangent, nobody will take them seriously for anything.
Now we're also hearing that some of them are being threatened that their seats, they're actually going to lose their seats. There's a whole orchestration to have them lose their seat at the primaries come 2024. Could this be perhaps the card that the presidency is playing in order to get them into submission?
But if you take a decision and at a point in time you're checking out, what do you expect? All right, a decision such as this, even if nobody is going to punish them, their constituents are going to punish them for failing to do their bidding. Let us remember that they told us that they are doing this thing as a way of what? Representing, as part of the representation of the interests of their constituents. Why are they checking out? And that they don't seem to take a very firm decision on this matter. So any attack at them is self-inflicted, you know. But what I want to say,
yes,
what I want to say is that, you see, if you are running a government and ministers are not performing, and you want to deceive yourself into believing that they are performing, the reality would dawn on us, because at the end of the day, you need the performance to stand on to campaign for the next election. And where will be the evidence? So it's a little advice for the government and all the group who are interested in, making sure that their party is able to live up to expectation.
Right.
But quite apart from that, I can say without fear of contradiction that what the group is calling for, threatening the president and all that, they themselves cannot reshuffle anybody. What is their source of power? I mean, it's the president who appoints and is the one who can disappoint. All that they are doing, the threat is a veiled threat. It will not do anything. I don't even believe it, that they have something to offer us in this regard. So they better keep quiet and then we'll move on. We don't trust them.
Doc, I'm sure this has just started, because our preparation will indeed be passed tomorrow, and we'll see how this pans out, and we can have a much broader conversation on this. I'm grateful for your time. That's Dr. Asa Asante, a political scientist, senior lecturer at the University of Ghana. Put on hold your resolve to honor your promise to God to build a national cathedral because of the current economic hardship in the country. Words of the president of the Bono Regional House of Chiefs, Domahene Osajifo Osiadeyo Ajmanbedu II, who has become the latest to join in a litany of calls for the project to be put on hold, considering the times in which the country is in. We'll hear from him shortly, but first, the Trade and Industry as well as Tourism Committee of Parliament has voted against the 80 million cedis earmarked for the construction of the National Cathedral in the 2023 budget appropriation. The construction of this edifice has generated controversy since it was launched, with Parliament calling for transparency and accountability. Government expenditure on the project recently formed basis for essential motion by the minority against the finance minister. However, calls for the suspension of the project intensified when the minority disclosed that about 80 million has been devoted to it in the 2023 appropriation. Now it emerged the allocation has been voted against. Yusuf Suleimana is a member of the committee and MP for Boli Bamboy.
On the Trade, Industry and Tourism Committee, the issue of 80 million Ghana cedi budgeted for a cathedral has come to our attention, and we have met several times. Today was the last meeting that we held on the issue of the cathedral, and I can tell you on authority that at the end of the day, we have to vote, and after the vote, the minority carried the day. We have voted against it, and we're saying that this is not a time for us to be spending that huge sums of money in building a cathedral. Apart from that, we were told at the committee that they had already spent 339 million Ghana cedi. And when we asked them to give us evidence of how the money was spent, it was a challenge. Again, we were told that they have moved the cathedral from wherever it was to the Ministry of Tourism. And the question I put to them was that organization that is handling this cathedral, the Secretariat, is it under Ministry of Tourism? If it's not under Ministry of Tourism, then it means that you only want to use the ministry as a conduit to pass through, send the money to wherever you want to send it. And we, the minority, will not accept it.
Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Kweku Asante joins me via Zoom with some more details on this. Kweku, what are the details of the proceedings at the committee level that led to the vote against the 80 million Ghana cedis budgeted?
So, Ernest, ultimately, it came up to the vote 10 against 11. The minority getting 11 votes at the committee level, the majority side getting 10. Ordinarily, you would not expect the minority to win any vote in committee because majority MPs usually have more MPs on the committee than the minority. Indeed, this was a Trade, Industry, Tourism Committee with the added members from the Sports Committee. Totally, the minority were up against a Herculean task. But Fortunately for them, some NPP MPs did not show up today at the committee sitting,
Right.
and so they had their way. They were able to get 11 votes, and the majority side got 10. What this will mean is that the committee report that will come to the floor will recommend by majority decision to reject the 80 million cedis allocation. A voice vote will be taken. It's an easier route for the minority to take than to have lost the vote in committee and come in expecting to invoke division, expecting to invoke headcount. And so, for now, that is some big hurdle in the way of government's ability to be able to mobilize these 80 million cedis to spend on the National Cathedral. If anything is who has planned, as the minority are having it now, tomorrow, when that debate is taken on the floor, the motion will lose.
Kweku, thank you very much. And of course, you'll be there to bring us up to speed on everything that transpires in Parliament. That's our Parliamentary Affairs correspondent. And speaking at the general meeting of the House of Chiefs, the Domahene Osajifo Osiadeyo Ajman Bedu II also sent this message to President Akufo-Addo through the regional minister, Justina Osubanahene.
You swore to God to build a national cathedral in his honor if you won the elections. That's a very good thing to do. However, given the economic difficulties Ghanaians are facing around this time, the people have asked me to tell you to put the project on hold. It's your initiative. No one can take that away from you. But don't use the national coffers to build the cathedral. Tell him to focus on economic recovery so that in good time, even if he's not able to complete it, any of his brothers could do so. That is what Ghanaians want me to tell you.
Many thanks for staying with us here on Joy News Prime. Let's do some other stories now, but we return to Parliament because the Minority Leader, Haruna Idrisu, wants the House to accept its share of responsibility for the current economic difficulties facing the country. Haruna Idrisu says the crisis is due to excessive borrowing by successive governments, particularly this one. Speaking during a core leadership conference organized by the Ministry for Parliamentary Affairs, Haruna Idrisu argued that Parliament has been lax in its oversight responsibility and has allowed almost all loans without proper scrutiny.
Today, Ghana has an economic crisis, a crisis which is only similar to what pertained in the country in 1983. How did we get there? Excessive borrowing. Who ought to have checked government not to borrow or overborrow? The Parliament of Ghana. So Parliament must accept some blame and some responsibility in not keeping the executive to check. The consequences of excessive borrowing is now being felt by all of us when you hear an animal called a debt exchange initiative. It is affecting businesses, it's affecting public enterprises because they cannot run well, it's affecting the private sector. So Parliament's role as defender of the people's interests is lost. So how did we get there? How come that we couldn't anticipate it? Article 181, it is only Parliament that approves the terms and conditions of a loan. So if we borrowed and now we have exceeded 100% of GDP, how did it happen? And a typical example of the intense partisanship I spoke about, how could a Sino-Hydro loan get approval from Ghana's Parliament? If Ghana's Parliament was to sit right, you have government arguing that Sino-Hydro, I'm doing battle of bauxite, when the road to the bauxite site is not even constructed. The Parliament of Ghana ought, in the defense of the people's interests, ought to have rejected that because the battle has failed. Sino-Hydro is due for payment. You don't have the bauxite. Parliament has reduced itself to a clearinghouse for executive embarrassment. When the executive brings something, then all of us, and I'm not talking about just an 8th or 7th Parliament, when you can talk of CNTI law, you can talk of STS law, they bring something to Parliament, we are not ready to scrutinize it and tell them in the face that this is not good enough for the country.
Now, his colleague, Majority Leader Oseche Mensah Bones, who is also the Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, attributed the poor oversight from Parliament to weak committee structures. He proposes that some strong committees in the House should be chaired by the opposition.
The Minority Leader has related to excessive borrowing. And I think he and I have been discussing this. When a country is engaged in deficit financing, the chicken certainly will come home to roost at a point in time. And that's what we are seeing. That is what you're saying. Over the past 20, 25 years, every year, routinely, when we have budgets presented to us, we do know that we have to borrow to survive as a country. And that's what routinely, that's what we've been doing. And when you know that your resources are not able to match your appropriated amount, what will happen eventually? The edifice will collapse. And I agree with him. I have always been saying on the floor that we want to strengthen Parliament, but the Parliament is as strong as its committees make it. The structure of our committee system in Parliament is not helping us to grow our Parliament. When you have a system where all committees are headed by the members from the ruling party, certainly you have these dividends. You will really lower the standards of Parliament, which is why since 1993, our Parliament has always been rated very lowly when it comes to the performance of our oversight responsibilities. In France, as I keep saying, the Finance Committee, like the Public Accounts Committee, is chaired.
A 20-year-old resident of Fumbisi in the Upper East region, Ebenezer Adajajvu, is passionate about becoming a nurse. Unfortunately, that dream looks hazy. The principal of the Bolgatanga Nursing Training School asked him to reconsider his decision and become a teacher instead of becoming a nurse because he limps. Ebenezer said the school is ready to refund his admission once he applies to the teacher training school. This has left him devastated. The Bolgatanga Nursing School confirmed asking Ebenezer to consider teaching, but said the advice was devoid of malice and discrimination.
Ebenezer Adajavuk lives in Fumbisi, a small community in the Upper East region. He's always wanted to be a nurse. After successfully completing senior high school, he applied to the Bolgatanga Nursing Training College to kickstart that dream. But his joy was cut short because the school said his limping condition is a problem.
It was time for him to now, the principal, to print my admission letter for me. Then he said I have to come back with either my parents or anybody. In his own words, he said that the way he was talking, he was saying that it is a help that he's giving to me and advice that it is not discrimination, but he looks where that will help me and looking at things the way if I want to work for the nursing, I can't do that. People in nursing field at the end, some of them come out with having pains, backbone pains and other pains. So for me to go and stand, what he was saying that for the standing side that he was saying that I can't do. That was what he was saying then. If only the help he wants to give me is that maybe he will find my money, then if only I want, I'll go to the teaching field. Because that place, even if I go that, if I teach for a while, I can even sit if I don't want to.
Ebenezer is amazed that the interview panel did not reject him because of this limping condition.
After they interviewed, we came back, so we're there, then I was visiting my portal, then later I find out that they gave me temporary admission. So when I gained the admission, in the admission letter they said we should go to the bank and pay the money, 2,000 to the bank.
The advice for him to give up on his dreams and chase another haunts him and gives him sleepless nights.
I feel it badly, and sometimes I always think about it. For me to become what I want to become, and at this age they are telling me that I cannot become, I feel it badly. Sometimes I feel like weeping, because if I sit alone I always think about it. So now what will I do again? So I feel it badly. Inside me and how I work, I know that yeah, this work I can do it with a passion and a zeal. So I want to tell him that he shouldn't just, it is not that the way he looks at things, that's how it is. But things are not that way. It is beyond that. So if only he have the opportunity to give me a try in the field, I'll be very happy with him.
Principal of the Bolgatanga Nursing Training College told Joy News he advised Ebenezer and his family to consider teaching instead of nursing. He insists his counsel was devoid of prejudice and malice, and there is hope for Ebenezer, who remains eligible for nursing school. Kojo Manu, Joy News.
Now, the cost of used clothing may see some reduction soon, as the Used Clothing Dealers Association announced a 30% reduction on the price of their wares. At a news conference earlier today, the association cited the appreciation of the cedi in the last 1 month and the ease of doing business as part of the reasons for the reduction. Now, patrons may feel this not early enough, as some of the retail shops say they will have to first sell off their current goods, which they bought at a higher rate, before they can effect the directive. We'll hear from them shortly, but first, listen to the spokesperson of the Used Clothing Dealers Association.
In view of the current positive change in the value of the cedi, we have reduced prices of the second-hand clothing goods by 30% to our customers to facilitate easy buying and selling. We therefore appeal to the public and members in the sector of second-hand clothing to adjust their prices accordingly for customers to have a positive feel of the trend. We hope that the government will continue with the positive energy in stabilizing the value of the cedi as it appreciates, and we will believe that the economic stability will be maintained with their immense effort. Thank you.
We can now hear from some of the traders who say it may take between 2 weeks and a month before they can effect the directive to reduce the price of their wares by 30%.
2023 there, if the dollar stay as is hard, maybe we can reduce.
Until how soon can we expect the prices of your wares to come down? Give us a window, say a month or two.
A month. Let's take a month.
But currently, how much are you selling your bales?
Oh, we have cotton dress. Cotton dress, at first we sell it 3,500, but since last week we sell it 3,200. So we are reducing small.
I'm Nanesi, and this is my shop. My shop name is S1 Enterprise. I'm into used clothing.
Wonderful, Nanesi. So 30% reduction, that's what the leadership have announced. But let's first walk us through how you do the business. So I see these are bales of clothing, right? That's what you call it, right? Bales of clothing. So what particularly is this?
This is men jeans.
Okay.
At the moment when the dollar is up, we are selling it 4,000.
Wow. So 4,000 just from here to here. Yes. Everything inside of it is 4,000 Ghana cedis.
4,000 Ghana cedis.
That's very high.
Yes, because the dollar was high. Okay. But at this moment we are trying to come down a little bit. Right now I'm selling at 3,800. But we hope this is an old stock. So when the new stock comes, we can even drop it to at least 3,500 or lesser than that.
Up next is Showbiz.